If your YouTube algorithm is anything like mine, the odds are high that the very ad that played before this video began is the exact genre that we're going to talk about today.
More points. 3 more points.
Is fickle.
Wrong.
I just know what I like!
And that being sports betting. With football in full swing, they are ramping up their ads, and honestly, on a completely side note, some somewhat very questionable AI-generated ads. But that's beside the point. That's its own discussion for another day. The thing I want to talk about today is sports betting and those sports betting apps that have become so popular, and sadly, the extreme danger it poses to young people and young men in particular. With sports betting, I want to look at it is addictive, and I'll get behind the science. Why is it so addictive? And following that, I want to talk about why that is so dangerous and give an example of that, and what can we do to stop it? What can we do about this? I don't want to just leave off with all the stats and statistics without any hope. So why is it so addictive? Well, the reason is they have engineered it to trigger the reward cycles in your brain, maybe better than anything else, maybe even better than the fields of corn, as it were. It triggers the response of when you have a victory, when you win, it creates a reward cycle. It creates a dopamine hit, just like when you complete a long task, you get a natural dopamine hit, or when you have a video game and you get a kill, you get a quick dopamine hit. It activates the same thing, but it does it on a much deeper level. And also, more importantly, and this is why I think it's more dangerous than the cornfields, it triggers the negative response in your brain. When you have a loss, you want to double down to try and make a victory. The cornfields don't do that. They give you a release. That's the big reason why they are so addictive, is they give you a dopamine release. Sports betting does it twofold. It gives you the dopamine release on a win, and it creates that angst on a loss to try again to get a victory. And they flash it with you, not only with just a screen, but flashy screens, flashy commercials that even those themselves create a small dopamine release. So that is why it is so addictive. So what is the danger? Where can that addiction lead? So as we continue this video, I wanted to read some questions that were asked of a wife that her husband had gotten over $500,000, $500,000 in debt due to gambling in particular, but I'm sure there was sports betting in there as well. So first question, how old are you guys? She was 34, he's 42. They asked, how much do they make? She makes $200,000 a year, which is an incredible income. But the money that he has to pay back because of his gambling debts is $25,000 a month. That's insane. Is it just his debt, or did he gamble his and your savings and assets? Unfortunately, all of the above. He gambled all our savings and assets and took out hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. One of the most ridiculous aspects of gambling addiction in the U.S. is the way our credit score system works. Instead of seeing him as a risky bet, which he is, the banks see that he's making payments and paying off loans. In reality, he's just borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. But he still has a shockingly high credit score, all things considered. Outside of traditional lenders, there are payday loans and tribal loans with 300% interest that will loan him money to literally anyone. These loans have been the hardest to keep up with. Question 5. Please don't take this the wrong way, but how did you not notice he was losing all the money fairly quickly? The reason I didn't notice that he was losing so much money is because he wasn't gambling money that we earned. Nothing was missing from my bank account. He was taking out loans and depositing that money into a bank account that I couldn't see, and then gambling with the money I didn't know he had. Question 6. Would his gambling addiction be a problem if he won? Yes. Believe it or not, the craziest part of the story is that when I was going through all his transactions, I discovered that he did win hundreds of thousands of dollars. But instead of cashing out his winnings and take me to a nice dinner, he instantly used those winnings to place more bets, and in the end, he lost more than he won. Number 7, do you think he was doing it for all selfish dopamine rush, or do you think maybe he had you in mind, a desperate risk to improve your collective lives against foreboding odds? A mix. Certainly some of it was chasing his losses. He lost so much money that earning it back with a normal job seems impossible. But winning it big does seem possible. The gambler's fantasy. Is he still currently gambling? I hope not, but unfortunately, it's impossible to tell. Number 9, how are both of you guys doing emotionally? Horrendous. It's such a horrible, miserable, soul-sucking problem. And again, because it's an invisible addiction, most of our friends and family don't know. So there's no community support like you get when you see around a wife whose husband is clearly an alcoholic. People assume you're fine, maybe tired, but in reality, you're a wreck. How did he treat you while he was actively gambling? Well, when we first met, he was the life of the party. Everyone at the office loved him, and he was extremely charming, funny, and charismatic. Gambling sucked the life out of him. At its worst, he has become very reclusive and antisocial. Why haven't you left him? It's a question I asked myself 1,000 times. The short answer is, I don't quite know. The long answer is, I know he was pre-gambling, and I know he could be the person again if he got sober and stayed sober from gambling. Also, I'm deeply embedded in his family. His siblings are like my siblings now. His cousins are like my cousins. I'd lose them too. Where does your marriage go from here? Will you stay together? I'm hoping that he'll stay in recovery, but I also wouldn't be shocked if the marriage didn't survive this. Gambling is one of the hardest addictions to kick, mainly because it's invisible. Can you submit his information to the online betting platforms and local casinos so that he bans himself? Yes, definitely it's a start, but it's not a failsafe. Does your husband present other behaviors that are termed addictive? Addiction runs in the family, but as far as I knew, it was drugs and alcohol. I had no idea gambling was a problem or that his late father taught him to gamble as a small child. Gambling is now being heavily marketed to men. Oftentimes, men struggle with loneliness, lack of community, and lack of hobbies, personal development. My question is, do you feel your husband can recover? It does seem to be a predominantly male crisis. Yes, I've met men whose wives are compulsive gamblers, but I'd say it's one woman for every 20 men. Yes, I believe recovery is possible, but it's hard to achieve. How did you not murder him when you found out he gambled your money too? I think because the big reveal happened so slowly. It wasn't a single realization, but hundreds of little lies slowly being revealed. I think if I just found out out of the blue, I would have left him right away. What are lessons that he learned from this experience? Lesson: don't gamble. Don't encourage your friends to gamble. And absolutely under no circumstances ever teach your kids about gambling. My husband learned how to gamble from his dad. His dad would let him place a small $5 bet on things here and there for fun. Little did he know or realize he was teaching his son how to gamble would later ruin and almost end his son's life. What's the next move? He's in therapy. I go to Gambling Anonymous, but for me personally, I'm desperate to bring attention to gambling addiction via posts like this, blogs, and maybe a book someday. The problem is way, way, way worse than anything or anyone even realizes. And it's only going to get worse with the legalization of betting in more states. And frankly, it doesn't matter if it's legalized. We live in a state where gambling is illegal, and he bet all that money away on offshore sites anyways. The pathway to finding hope is to not even play their game. Their game has been engineered to be the next level of addictive. Gambling is addictive enough, but sports betting only amplifies and multiplies the key triggers in gambling. So to avoid it, don't even play their game. And if you have found yourself in the chains of sports betting and you want to break free, there are a few critical aspects that you must do to have freedom. First off, you need to accept and recognize that there is an issue, that this is a problem, and this is behavior that you do not want to continue. You also need to accept that there is hope and that you are not forever going to be an addict. You are not going to be forever in bondage to this. Some people think they will always be in danger of an addiction. And yes, you must be careful of it, but it doesn't mean it should have power over you for the rest of your life. You can be free from it. You can overcome it. So you must have first an acceptance, and then you need to have accountability. People to challenge you, to equip you, to encourage you, softwares and systems and boundaries in place to protect you from accessing those apps. Perhaps you might have to go so cold turkey of totally getting rid of a smartphone. So foreign to our world, but if you really want to experience freedom, that might be the pathway that you have to do. And there's many other addictions that sometimes might take that level of dedication, which some of those I'm going to talk about, but those are for another video. So acceptance, extreme accountability, as it were, to find freedom. And those are the pathways. That is the pathway to hope. That brings freedom. And I would say on top of that, you need to find healing through it as well. It does take acceptance. It does take accountability, but it can't just be those two things. You need to find healing for yourself. Oftentimes we do addictive behaviors trying to fulfill some sort of void or pain in our lives. And I would encourage you to figure out what void are you trying to fill. And that can be through many, many ways of finding that out, but perhaps the best way is to go to counseling or therapy. Find a good pastor to talk to about it. Find a good therapist to help you figure out why am I doing, what void perhaps am I trying to fill by doing these behaviors. And taking those three things together is the pathway to hope, to freedom, acceptance, accountability, and healing. I hope this little thing might encourage even just one person and might be a tiny help. I'll try and post some things down below in the comments or the description, of perhaps some websites that can help if someone is in this addiction, if they're in the bounds of this, because I just see it all over the place. And I hear stories from different podcasts I listen to, and it breaks my heart. I see this as one of the darkest, greatest threats, especially to young men my age, in my generation. And that's saying a lot, because there's some big ones that have been around for a while that I used to thought was the most dangerous thing, which, again, I will do a video on that maybe even next. But this thing might take the cake right now. So I'm very concerned about it, and I want people to find freedom and hope from bondage. Thank you guys for watching. If there's anything I can do to be a help and encouragement, please write down below in the comments. I would love to help in any way I can. Thank you.